Thursday morning of Arts Fest weekend in Happy Valley. This is Connect Happy Valley A.M. We are at Pine Grove Hall in Pine Grove Mills. Check them out at pinegrovehall.com. I'm Chris Buchignani. He's Greg Woodman. We are starting your morning off with your little slice of the paradise we call home right here in Happy Valley. And Greg, I think it is a distinct pleasure for both of us to welcome in today's guest. Why don't you introduce the audience to Dave?
Welcome, Dave Gertis. And Dave, well, I want you to kind of introduce yourself because you have such a vast background. I would do a disservice to try to
Indeed
tell the audience like why you're here and why we're enthused for it. We can talk economics of tourism and economics of just what all the cultural assets bundled together mean to all of us here.
My why is I love Happy Valley. I love Happy Valley. I consider this home. My background is hotels and resorts, and I will not go into that list because it'll take up the whole show, unfortunately. But I've had the pleasure of living everywhere, it seems, all over the country or working everywhere. And I came back. I did. I came back because I love Happy Valley. And that was 2019, at the end of 2018. So what is that, 8 years, almost 8 years, and I've not looked back, not been one bit disappointed, and there's even more to love about Happy Valley now. And you guys, kudos to you guys, because this endeavor is just fantastic. Connect is, I mean, that's exactly what it is, Connect.
And so what connected you back in 2018 or 19? Where did you move from to come back to Happy Valley? And then tell us also when you were first introduced to Happy Valley.
Yeah, I came, excuse me, I came back. I had the opportunity. I was asked to come back and help create a year-round destination here in Happy Valley. And I had been out in San Diego, Southern California for about 10 years. Loved it. Beautiful place. Got a little expensive for me, got a little crowded for me, and at that point it was like, I got to slow it down. And 3 months earlier, I was doing a consulting job up in Vermont, in Stowe, Vermont, at a ski resort who was trying to do the same thing, coincidentally, and so out of the blue it said, come on back. So I did. I took that leap of faith, and as I said, I don't regret it one bit. In fact, I wish I would have done it sooner.
So Dave, we're so happy to have you on the show today because I really think in many ways you typify everything we're trying to achieve with Connect Happy Valley and with this show, because we fashion ourselves as storytellers of the Nittany Valley. We want people who live here to know the story of this place and really appreciate what it is to be a fish in water and maybe take for granted how cool it is and how much it has to offer, and send the message out there to the world. If you're somebody who's looking like you did for a chance to get away from high cost, fast pace, big crowds, but you still value quality of life, this is a great option to consider. So we always say, whether you want to come for a day or forever, we want to put the very best of Happy Valley on display. And you've got such an interesting story. You have, like so many folks, Greg and myself included, anchor your ties to Happy Valley from your time at Penn State. But then professionally, this has been your stock and trade. How do you market a destination? How do you let potential tourists, customers of people who are trying to make a decision about what they're going to do with their finite time and entertainment dollar to choose you, to choose your place? And you have in fact lived this message that we're sending out there into the world, which is if you spend a little time here in Happy Valley, and you develop that lifelong connection, which again, for a lot of people does originate with Penn State. Why not come back? Why not come back for a visit? Why not come back to relocate? So all very cool. I'm just wondering if you can begin today's conversation by giving the audience, I know you said you don't want to list all the places you work for, but just give us the top line Reader's Digest bullets on your background and what brought you here the first time, and a little bit about the journey that brought you back.
Well, first off, Chris, thank you very much. But the one thing that really kind of irritates me the most is when I hear people say there's nothing to do. And there's so much to do. And you said
it's the opposite. It's too much.
There's too
right?
much.
Yeah.
There's too much. And it is clearly an opportunity for them to explore and to discover. They just don't know. It's a situation of awareness. And I can tell you the exact date that I fell in love with Penn State, with Happy Valley. It was November 11th, 1967.
Love it.
It was my first football game. My dad drove a friend of mine and myself down from Wilkes-Barre. We were living in Wilkes-Barre at the time. And if I recall correctly, you're the historian, but I think it was Joe Paterno's first big win was November 11th, 1967. It was against North Carolina State, who at the time
That would track.
was ranked number 3 in the country. And here's this young coach, this young football team, and I believe they upset them. I think it was 13-9 or 13-8 with a goal line stand. And I was 10 years old. I was just enamored by the whole thing. And that's where I caught the bug. And it's a bug you never get rid of. 10 years later, I'm a student. I'm a student at Penn State. Much different Penn State those days. I know, Greg, you were in the late 70s as well, but it's still here. That spirit that I found in the 70s is still here. Yeah, it may look a little different. It may be presented a little different, but you're also spot on. It's about storytelling. And there's so many stories, whether it's the 70s, whether it's after that, whether it's before that. I mean, I believe people have been here, well, wonderful Native American territory, but I think the settlers popped in here in the 1700s. There's so many stories here that people just aren't familiar with. And I have worked in Florida, South Florida, Southern California, as I mentioned. As far northeast as Boston. I've had territory in the Northwest. So I think I visited or have lived in all but 6 states in the Union.
Oh, wow.
I have my son lives in Honolulu, my youngest lives in San Diego, and my oldest daughter lives in South Florida. So I'm taken care of when it comes to vacations. I can go wherever I feel just got to get there. But there's so many stories here in Happy Valley, and I think that's what brought me back is the ability to help uncover some of those, not only the stories, but also the owner-operators of the small businesses here, of the events, the restaurants, beautiful restaurant here. There's just a lot, and there's a lot of emotional connection to this area. It's interesting, when I left, I graduated in 1980. It was 25 years before I returned. When I brought my son back for a football camp, we were living in Northern Virginia, and I brought my dad with me because he was a 56 grad, and it was amazing. The two of us just looked at each other and like, it fits like a glove. For me, 25 years later. And then I never imagined that I would be brought back or asked to come back and help the area market itself as a year-round destination, and it truly is. Not just to alumni, and I've had the pleasure over the last 7 years working with the Adventure Bureau to travel quite a bit, to talk to so many people in so many towns about why Happy Valley. And I tell them, in one word, decompress. It's a feeling you have as soon as you come over those ridges and you see Mount Nittany. If you're connected with the university in some way, all those memories come flooding back. If you're not, it's a wow. It's a wow because of the vastness, the green. It's so green.
I was just going to say, there's so much green. And then you get into the little towns and villages of the valley, all around State College, and you realize no matter what your tastes are, if you've got, but Greg always, and I love the analogy he uses, he always talks about pop art and fine art, and he uses that analogy not just to describe actual entertainment and art, but you can use that distinction in a million different ways. But whether your tastes tend to the fine art side or the pop art side, in every expression of that comparison, we got something for you here. And nevertheless, any direction you go from town, 20 to 30 minutes, There
If
is
that, yeah.
there is some incredible natural resource to be enjoyed. You know, I just saw the headlines yesterday. Penn's Cave is, in all likelihood, cross your fingers, but I think the odds are looking pretty good. That's going to become a state park.
It
Really
is.
cool stuff.
And kudos to the family out there. It's a great point of interest, but I'm
And
sorry.
I just want to make a quick point, Dave, before it gets too far downstream, and then I want to come back and talk a little bit more about your work with the Adventure Bureau. But you talked about how when you were here as a student in the 70s, then you came back in the 2010s, it was very different. You know, campus was different, obviously a lot more buildings, a lot bigger footprint for the university. Downtown looks very different. I just know, I mean, I was a student here in the late 90s, early 2000s, and for some of my peers who don't get back very often, there are some who come for every home football game and some who don't make it up but once a decade.
Yeah.
For that crowd, they're blown away just by the difference in the profile of skyline of downtown State College. Because the notion that we would have a bunch of tall buildings across the street from campus is shocking to them. So I do think for a lot of Penn Staters, or even just people who grew up here and then moved away and come back, they talk about how different it is.
It is.
The point I would remind you, and I thought you articulated it so well, that there's a spirit here that hasn't changed.
No.
You think about the people who were at Penn State when we finally realized the long-held goal of going from college to university in 1953, or the people who were here in the 1920s, or were on campus in the late 1880s when Atherton became president. The only commonality is the spirit, because you go forward 25 years from any one of those points in the town and the university's history, and it looked almost unrecognizable from the point where a prior generation fell in love with it. But for well over 1.5 centuries now, since this marriage of Penn State and this community that grew up around it began, that spirit, that affection for a place and for a community, in time, in physical community and of people, that's been a constant. So don't get turned off by the campus looks different,
No.
or the town looks different, because for every generation of people of the valley, it has always looked different. It has always been changing, and I always joke that I'm sure at some point there was some local or some gray-haired alum who was walking down College Ave the first time a Model T rolled down it, and it was no longer for cows and pigs to come walking down a dirt road, and said, there goes the neighborhood. The spirit and the magic are gone.
Well, you know, it's funny you talk about the 50s. I know one of the things my dad made comment when we returned was he remembers when College Ave was two ways. Traffic was two ways.
True.
And so, yeah, the spirit, and that's that emotional attachment that not only alumni have to the area, but residents have to this area.
No question.
And you can't, it's hard to describe. It's hard to describe, but I think when you're talking about why and encouraging people to visit this area, I think that's what resonates the most, is even for people that have never been here before, there is that when they leave, they go, whoa, you know, we'll be back. And it's that connection. They find something that piques their interest, or they didn't have time to do what they wanted to do, that brings them back. But there is such a, it's a spirit. That's the best way I can describe it. And I don't think anybody that has been touched by Happy Valley loses that. They're a part of that fraternity. They're a part of that fraternity moving forward, and always will be. And obviously it's a little stronger for alumni. And I think in our promoting this area as a place to spend your money, it's a battle of discretionary income, you know, who's going to get the most. It was, first off, just encouraging people to either come back or to give us a try. But you have to be out there, you have to be messaging, you have to be storytelling all the time in the tourism market, because it is so competitive. And I just, Ann Ryan, who heads up tourism for the state of Pennsylvania, I think she was in Philadelphia or somewhere just recently talking about how well Philly has delivered for World Cup. And I think next week they're hosting the Major League Baseball All-Star Game.
Yes, sir.
So they go from one thing right into the other. But it's just interesting that Pennsylvania as a state has so much to offer. And this area kind of summarizes all of that. Because, as you know, most alumni are either in the Pittsburgh area or they're in the Philadelphia area, now in the D.C. area. And it's easy to get people to come back if you just tell them, if you help them with that why. I know Greg's talked about why before, but I think one of the first days I was back in Happy Valley as a resident, someone told me, just give them a reason to come back and they'll be back. And that's so true.
It's
It's
Connect
so
Happy
true.
Valley A.M. here at Pine Grove Hall. We do this every Monday through Friday, 9 to 10 a.m. on the Connect Happy Valley YouTube channel. You can go to connecthappyvalley.com to sign up for the weekly e-letter. And Greg and I are here talking with Dave Gertis, and we were talking about the tourism angle of marketing Happy Valley. And Dave, you talked at the top of the show about how the challenge is not that there's nothing to do, it's that there's too much, and it's about structuring the way you share that information with people. It's not that we don't have the resources, it's just letting people know. And you talked about the tourism business and how that is a hyper-competitive marketplace. And so really it comes down to storytelling as a strategy, because you've got to share that information. You've got to get it out there. And I got two career marketers sitting to my right here. So I thought you guys could dig in a little bit to the actual experience you've had over the last 7 years. You're part of the rebrand of Happy Valley Adventure Bureau. And what have you found, Dave, to be some of the challenges and opportunities in marketing Happy Valley? And I know Greg will have some great follow-ups on that, because that is his bread and butter. The 4 Ps, right, Greg?
Product, price, placement, and promotion. And
So-
so we're
so
talking
true.
about, we know the product
true.
is excellent.
Yeah.
And so now let's talk about
Please.
the rebranding and how you went to the world and answered the question, why Happy Valley versus Chapel Hill or Lancaster, PA, or Philly or Pittsburgh. You're out there in a very competitive market, and you've been all over the world marketing destinations. So what have you found out there? What can you report back to
I learned that a successful marketer has to touch on as many of the 5 senses as possible when they're messaging. Now, and this is, the conversation comes in with AI. I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. Those 5 senses, there's now a 6th.
Ooh, 6 senses. I got to
6th.
start teaching
and
this now.
is awareness. It's awareness, and that's very cognitive. And it's awareness. So you can now, in today's world, if you touch, and let's face it, unless you're in person, you can't nail all 5 senses, right? That's where AI cannot help you.
That's right. Can't get to the
It
heart.
can't help you. So if you touch, and especially when you're traveling and you're marketing and you're promoting a region, you're able to touch many of those, if not all 5 senses, certainly 3 or 4. But it's that awareness, and and that's what you folks are doing, is connecting and creating that constant awareness. Chris, that's how if you go dark as a destination, if you go dark, you lose all the equity you build up. So you constantly have to be talking and communicating and messaging and storytelling.
So what are the 6? If you have audience with pen and paper, wanting to know what are the 6 senses that you must touch that you've done so well by drawing 5 million visitors here.
Well, obviously, if you're not in person, you don't really get the full depth of the site. You can see a one-dimensional video or whatever.
But you need beautiful visuals that show off the landscape,
Exactly.
that show off
But everybody
the...
has that, right? Everybody
Sure.
has that, and unless you distinguish yourself and you show that, this just wasn't pulled off the internet, you can show a beautiful mountain range, but how do I know that's Happy Valley? So,
Are there 6 you can share? I don't mean to press you on that. Are there 6 senses?
well, my point is, whatever you're trying to message, you want to touch the senses, individual travelers' senses, because that's what evokes, I want to go deeper, I want to
So
go
the
further.
feeling, so you tap into the feelings and emotions was what
right.
you're talking about, the heart,
Yeah,
the
and-
emotional connection. And that's what you guys are talking about when you use the word spirit.
Right.
But when you're in San Diego, or you're in Palm Springs, or all the places you've marketed it,
Yeah.
what were the senses you were peddling then to create the awareness, interest, desire,
Well,
action, and use of time and
It's
money?
primarily sight, sound, and hearing. Well, sight, sound, and I guess taste, because what we're sitting in right now, I think a lot of people don't realize how vital food and beverage is to a resort, whether it be a property or whether it be an area. The food and beverage is what usually lingers in the memory, is having a good meal, or I'm coming back because that meal was outstanding. I want to say it was 15 years ago, and when I was in Southern California, we had some struggling resorts. And some of the challenge was on weekends, believe it or not, was weekends. And so we instructed them to wipe the slate clean and go out and attract only the weddings. Go out and bring in the weddings. And then what we would do when a prospective bride and her family would come in, because it's primarily the bride's family that picks the location, the first stop we'd take them to is a restaurant, and we'd have a meal. And that triggers so much, is that food and beverage experience. So I'd have to say sight, sound, and taste.
Okay.
Those were three where you had to do, but the awareness nowadays, and there's so many tools to create awareness, and that's why I say it's almost a sixth sense now, is the general awareness, because, yeah, people just don't know. They just don't know, and that's the challenge, and you're filling in that gap. You're filling in that opportunity to let, especially our residents, know about what's going on here. Because there's no better salespeople than the people that live here.
And that's what we're attempting to activate, are the local residents,
Yes.
the people who live here in Happy Valley, activate them into these third places, these food and beverages, these coffee shops, into the events where Arts Festival today, People's Choice, it's
Oh,
Arts
that's-
Week, to get them, in addition to the visitors and the alums who are coming back, to engage and get out there and use that discretionary time to connect.
Yeah, football weekends, we love football weekends. I mean, we are known around the world. I have been in airports in Dubai. I have been in an airport in Singapore, Tokyo, with Penn State stuff on, not even thinking twice about it, and you hear the "We Are" echo through the airport, and you respond immediately. And very few universities have that. Very few universities have that.
Well, and so when you're at these trade shows around the world saying, come have your convention, have your meeting, have your state championship or your event here in Happy Valley, what have been the reactions to come here versus Chapel Hill or Ann Arbor? You know, I love college towns. Is the market of conventions and visitors into college towns? Did you find that they were welcoming to that versus the city?
Well, it was an alternative. They had never really thought about that, because when you're talking about meetings or conventions, their primary thought was the big city. Let's go to the big city. And it's interesting. It's not only because, obviously, of access, but things to do. And so it was trying to convince them that, we can do evening events. We can go off-site. There's things on campus. There's places off campus. Penn's Cave, you mentioned that. There are alternatives, and what's really, of course, when you're dealing with planners, the thing that really piques their interest the most is the affordability. And the fact that you're not getting nickeled and dimed wherever you go.
And so being involved for the last 8 years in bringing groups in here, what has been the reaction when we have these people leave the city and have their major event here or their Ironman here? What's been the voice of the consumer about being introduced to this college town we call Happy Valley?
Well, they've enjoyed it. In fact, very few times did I talk to somebody who didn't have a record attendance, and that speaks volumes. That speaks volumes. Now, yeah, ordinarily you could say, okay, once here, once there, okay, it could be the content of the event, the conference, the competition, but when you you consistently hear that from people. There is that spirit that they absorb when they come here, and I think there's just a sense of relaxation when people come here from the big cities. Almost immediately you feel that.
This word decompression, were you out kind of selling that to these convention people?
Well,
Have
that's
your
kind of a
convention
hard,
here?
yeah, that's kind of a hard term to, when you're selling, you don't usually hear the word decompress. But it was especially effective when we were traveling at the trade shows in the big cities, because you're dealing with a big city audience who are looking for an alternative to where they normally go, and that was what would pique their interest when they hear decompression. I remember being at a trade show in New York City, and literally within 2 blocks, you have as many people, if not more people, than live here. And just mentioning that to these folks, that there is a world beyond the Poconos. The West Coast is not the Poconos, that, yeah, go a little further, go into the interior, and there's a lot more to see, and certainly Happy Valley with all its virtues. I think people return. And it's amazing too, Chris, a lot of people don't know Happy Valley. We think that everybody knows Happy Valley. They don't. Even people in Harrisburg don't know Happy Valley unless there's a Penn State connection there. And here's another little tidbit. I was told, first off, did you hear they're going to hand out the 1 millionth degree this summer at graduation?
I did not, actually.
1 millionth degree. Let that sink in over, what, 155, 160 years of handing out degrees. But, yeah, it's a remarkable place, and it wasn't easy, it wasn't difficult. We would encourage them to stay beyond just a weekend or 2 days.
Well, how many new hotels have been built and are on path to being built?
Yeah, I think at one time, I was aware of 10 projects that were on the drawing table, and I think the area has welcomed 2 new properties, have just opened up closer to the Bellefonte area, and there's more that are in construction. I know at the corner of Beaver and Atherton, there's a big hole, and you're going to have a hotel go up there. So that's encouraging. Because when I got here, I think we had 2,600 hotel rooms in this market. And I think it's probably up to close to 3,000 now, with more on the
More on the way.
More
and
on the way, for sure.
Plus, Airbnb has
Oh,
provided
short-term rentals have just exploded in this area. And, it's something that all of us in tourism have to wrestle with, is the short-term rentals that are in almost all markets now. I mean, no matter where you go, it's a competitor. But, yeah, hotels are my bread and butter. As I said, my background's resorts and hotels. Pretty comfortable with their operations and sales and marketing.
Well, and as Gary, we use the word decompression, as Gary, who's going to be a guest next week, who very much involved with Scholar Hotels, Nittany Lion Inn, the Penn Stater, he says no one ever checking into a hotel in Happy Valley is not smiling. Where his properties in Philadelphia, they're not smiling.
No.
They're coming in, business, they're stressed. Happy Valley, everybody checks in, they're happy.
Yeah.
So the front desk people love checking people in because they're coming back to decompress and experience Happy Valley.
Well, we told people, no matter how you arrive, you're leaving with a smile on your face. And it's easy to market happy, right? In today's world, everybody wants happy.
It's an easy product to market, for sure. Nevertheless, as you said, tourism market, very competitive. There's a lot of other folks out there, a lot of other smart people, a lot of other places with assets to highlight, and we're up against all of them. This is Connect Happy Valley A.M. We're live here at Pine Grove Hall in Pine Grove Mills. I'm Chris Buchignani. He's Greg Woodman. We're talking with Dave Gertis, Penn State alum, career tourism marketing professional, and we're discussing the process of selling Happy Valley as a destination. So I'm wondering, Dave, if we can go back to your call back to the area to work with the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau, and that was an inflection point in the way we in this community, I believe, think and talk about ourselves, both internally and of course externally from a marketing perspective. So can you reflect a little bit on what were the challenges at that moment as you're making that transition from, I think it was called the
Center County Convention.
No, excuse me. Central Pennsylvania Convention and Visitors Bureau. That's a mouthful, right?
Does not roll off the tongue,
No,
obviously, since it
no.
took three of us to remember the name of the damn thing. And so
yeah.
you have to, you embark on this rebrand, and you got the whole team coming in and wrapping your arms around the challenge of selling a great product, but nevertheless having to do so in this very crowded, very competitive marketplace. And as you highlighted earlier, with awareness as the sixth sense, there's just never been a time in human history when people have been as bombarded constantly with 24/7 noise. So you're not just really competing against other tourist destinations. You're competing against everything, including the idiots on the obligatory PSU podcast, which just dropped its first fall episode. Get it wherever you get your fine podcasts, this AM. So Dave, talk about the state of play as you came on the scene back in 2018, and the whole team is looking at the challenge of how can we get better at letting people know all we have to offer here in Happy Valley.
Well, there was an air of excitement, number one. We went through that whole process of rebranding. We obviously landed on Happy Valley. And the agency that we were working with at the time said, you know, adventure really captures, that spirit captures the region. So we became different right away with Adventure Bureau. But the one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that we were ready to roll all of this out in March of 2020. And guess what happened? We had to pull back the reins. We had to drop it all. We had to pause. So we had gone through a year of this process, of this spend. We're ready to go, and boom, it's shut down. It's completely shut down. So,
And just from a revenue perspective,
devastating.
the Adventure Bureau is funded by the hotel tax primarily. And all of a sudden, you basically have everyone in the world saying, you must heroically stay home and not go anywhere.
And I think that's where we really became attached to that third tier of tourism that a lot of people don't pay attention to, and that's the locals. Because we literally had to turn into, our messaging was stay local, use local, buy local, don't order online, visit some of these shops. We've got to keep them going, visit the restaurants, do that curb service, do whatever you can to keep that third tier, which is so vital in a tourism economy. You've got to have that infrastructure. And, I think we did a pretty good job of it, but it awakened us to how vital that local group is, the residents are. And I think from that, things began to sprout. Then we started talking to, you want to be able to, you talk about data. I was taught cash is king. That's the bottom line. Cash is king. But nowadays, data is queen. And the king listens to the queen. And if you're not following the data, which is out there, you just got to find your right patch of data. And we used that. We were fortunate enough to, through a lot of the marketing partners we had, they would give us that feedback. But we concentrated on a small circle, and then we slowly expanded that. And that small circle was 200 miles, then it was 250 miles, then it's 300 miles. And that's the messaging we didn't talk to people in California, we didn't talk to people in Florida. We concentrated on that, I guess you can call it the recruiting circle that I think the football program has always used.
Sure.
Is that 250, 300 mile And it was interesting coming out of COVID though, people were seeking these kinds of destinations. So it was all timing. As disappointed as we were that we had to delay, when we did come out, a funny story, we were getting during COVID when there was no messaging going on, we were getting large numbers of crowds on the west side of the county in Phillipsburg. And we couldn't understand that initially. We couldn't understand why there was people visiting the county, but never has Phillipsburg outperformed State College or even Bellefonte. And as we dug deeper and deeper, and it was through cell phone data, it was people coming in to do the off-roading. And it was interesting. We tried to find where there was a common point.
These are motorcycles?
No, these are the off-road
Like
vehicles.
ATVs.
Okay, got it.
ATVs. Because a lot of the big trails started in the Phillipsburg area. So they were coming in from all points, not only of Pennsylvania, but from neighboring states.
Mm-hmm.
We were one of the friendlier states when it came to outdoor rec.
I know
during
talking
COVID.
to Pat Romano with We Are
Yeah,
In,
yeah.
huge revenue driver
Yes.
for him. And interestingly, Dave, I think talking about all the different gems of Happy Valley, much like the fly fishing, the trout fishing,
Yeah.
it is one of these like niche kind of subcultures, you would say, where there are a lot of enthusiasts. It's a community that connects with each other online and they share information, and it's almost invisible to a lot of people in the area. But if you know, you know. And in terms of bringing people to Happy Valley and enriching the community and boosting the economy, you don't even really need to get the word out because it just happens organically. And there's a resource that we have, and we're just free to take advantage of it without even having to lean too
It's
heavily
in
on our
backyard.
marketers.
It literally is in our backyard. There's 700,000 acres. We're surrounded by that much when it comes to state forest, and it's at our disposal every day. I mean, here, you go 5 miles, you're up on top of the ridge, and you've got that at your disposal. But it awakened us to the attraction of outdoor rec. Because up to that point, we were focused on, the shops in our small towns, which are wonderful and it's still viable. We were focused on conferences, athletic tournaments. Oh my word, when word got out that this area was hosting athletic tournaments, the phones were ringing. And it was just a matter of finding the right spot. Ironman came out of COVID, believe it or not. That was our first communication with Ironman was in the depths of COVID in October of 2020. And it was the revelation that this area can own or has the ability to own the outdoor rec scene in the state of Pennsylvania, if not in the region. And what we experienced afterwards and over the last 7 years, that belief is even stronger now. That there's no one in this state that owns outdoor rec. No one's tried to own it. And we've got everything right here, and the residents especially have access to that every day. And to your point, Chris, you really don't know they're there. We can absorb that so easily. It's not a matter of overcrowding. It's not a matter of over-tourism. We're always worried about over-tourism. And with the outdoor rec scene, especially in this location, I don't think there's a concern with capacity. And besides, if we can put up with the crowds on football weekend,
Right.
and here's something for your audience, with that cell phone data, the opening game, and I want to say it was 21 when we opened with West Virginia, maybe it was 22. It was a Labor Day weekend.
Let me see. If 23, actually.
Was it 23?
Yeah.
We did, there were over 200,000 people in that parking lot.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. That was gorgeous weather that day. It was a night game. It was just a 24-hour party in Happy Valley.
It was against a old rival that we hadn't played in years, and it was almost like a religious experience. People were coming to Mecca.
Oh, the
for that day.
WVU fans
Yeah.
were as excited about it as Penn State fans because of those historical ties. That home and home series was one of the most expensive tickets Penn State's had, I think, the last 5 or 10 years because of the interest driven by that.
Yeah.
And so, Dave, I want to talk a little bit now, since you brought up the Ironman and sports tournaments. I want to pivot into talking about your work getting the Happy Valley Sports and Entertainment Alliance going. I just ran into Bill Oldsey yesterday.
yeah, Bill.
We're going to have Bill on the show for sure at some
wonderful,
point.
wonderful
Former
guy.
Penn State trustee, super interesting dude. But before we do, just talk about these 700,000 acres. All of that embarrassment of riches that equips us with everything we need to, as you said, own outdoor rec. And yet, yesterday, I blew my daughter's mind when I told her that I saw 50 Cent at the Bryce Jordan Center. So we can have all of that, and we talk about here on Connect Happy Valley AM. Forget either or, throw that in the garbage. It's the power of and. We've got this and this and this. You can have all of those outdoor rec opportunities. You can go to Rothrock, you can go hike Mount Nittany, you can go fly fishing, you can go check out Penn's Cave, and you can also see huge national acts. She couldn't believe 50 Cent came to State College, and I said, yeah, Bryce Jordan Center, that team, they kill it. They kill it. They get huge national acts. Bruce Springsteen, Garth Brooks, Pearl Jam played its longest concert. For forever, it was the longest concert they'd ever played at
I
Bryce
was
Jordan
told,
Center.
Chris,
Paul McCartney.
I was told by somebody in Nashville that this area is kind of a mini Nashville for country western acts. And but you're absolutely correct. You could be out adventuring all day and then come back, and that's the gift that the university brings the area.
Absolutely.
Without
Backbone
that,
of the area.
Without that, we wouldn't have access. We'd have to go to Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, or Philadelphia, but that's the gift of the university.
So let's talk about selling Happy Valley as a destination for events, and specifically those around sports. And if you want to open with Ironman or whatever direction you want to take it, Dave, because I know you were a big part of that.
Well, yeah, I mean, Bill Oldsey, you mentioned Bill. Bill runs or is the chairperson for the Happy Valley Sports and Entertainment Alliance, which we created 3 years ago to focus on events, to focus on entertainment, to focus on sports tournaments. And this area, just because of the allure of Penn State, whether they're actually performing on campus or not, that's what the kids are saying. We're going to Penn State. And I tell you, nothing warms my heart more than to see a family with youngsters downtown buying Penn State swag. Because that's where it starts. As I told my story, it started when I was 10. That's where it starts. That's where it starts. But as soon as people realize, obviously geographically we're in the middle of the state. And a lot of these tournament organizers are sick and tired of battling families with Pittsburgh or Philly or Hershey or Lancaster. You give them the middle of the state and all of a sudden, wow, we don't have to listen to that anymore. So, and we have such great facilities here. Penn State facilities, which are not always available because they're for
Penn State's using them. Right?
Yes. So we have other facilities, and once those facilities opened up, and in particular Nittany Valley Sports Center and also C3, they kind of opened up at the same time. We had indoor facilities to host year-round. We obviously the golf courses, we draw in a lot of golf tournaments. We have softball fields, several complexes. So we were good in the warm months, in the summer months, but once it got cold, we didn't have those indoor facilities. We got those indoor facilities. So, it was just a matter of picking the right one, so to speak. And the Sports and Entertainment Alliance with Bill's leadership and also Eric Engelbart's, they're doing a great job of elevating or raising the bar with events, sports events here. But it is difficult. It is difficult, but it's not as difficult when you throw Penn State, you throw Happy Valley, and another interesting stat that I learned, 1 out of every 6 people in this country is somehow connected to Penn State.
I like that word connection. So since you're a data person,
I am a data
and
guy.
you've been tracking cell phones. You talk about us being in the center of the state, and you did a 300-mile radius of us right here in the center, Happy Valley. How much population is in a 300-mile radius of this bucolic little center of Pennsylvania?
Yeah, well, as the last I saw was around 75 million. And it is one of the, I think radii is the appropriate term, one of the densest population radii in the country.
And we're sitting in the middle of that.
We're right here. I mean, I think a little to the west might be a little more, but you think about all the major towns, and one area that a lot of people don't think about is Toronto. Toronto's inside that arc. And unfortunately, with the cell phone data that we had access to, we could not track international phones. So when we speak about visitors, it was mostly the domestic visitors to the area. And I don't know, especially this time of the year, you'll see a lot of Ontario plates driving around here. They're not rental cars. So yeah, data was king, and we started using that data. Of course, we called it the hilly area: Harrisburg, Hershey, Lancaster, York. Concentrated there, concentrated Philly. But then we realized Philly is rather organic. They're coming anyway. They're naturally attracted to this area because of the heavy alumni. We started going into the DC area. Yes, we did market in Toronto. In fact, here's a kind of a funny note. Last fall, and this is through NIL, we popped a billboard in downtown Toronto, a digital billboard of Gavin McKenna promoting Happy Valley.
I was going to say, Penn State, unfortunately, I must say, because I'm a Flyers fan and I can't say anything nice about the Toronto Maple Leafs organization, but certainly for Penn State and marketing this area, with Gavin McKenna being a Maple Leaf, now that is going to be a huge connection between the university and the place and the city of Toronto. And you're right. I mean, I know. So one of my very good friends from school, one of my roommates growing up, he's from Orchard Park, so he's a Buffalo guy. Yeah. And the amount of traffic back and forth across the border between the States and Toronto, I know, is way bigger than I think most people realize.
You don't realize that. But we are getting more and more people from Ontario that come down here and visit year round. But the people in Toronto, the agency that we used, it was funny when it was when Toronto, I think, won the coin flip, or however they did, the ping pong ball as number one. I said, it's too bad we didn't have collaboration with the Maple Leafs on that board, because I guess we knew something. We knew something because we put Gavin McKenna on a billboard in downtown Toronto, and of course they all knew who he was, but they didn't know the connection with Happy Valley. So, but unfortunately, that cell phone data, we can't track international visitors. And we know there's a lot of international visitors coming into Happy Valley.
Well, Manny's a live music venue in the old saloon in downtown with the closed street of Heister right now. Corey, who runs it, says he gets a lot of customers coming in from Toronto when he brings in his South America musical accent.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
So they come down. So let's just say we had a whiteboard here, and we're here in Happy Valley.
Yeah, we're in the middle.
And we have this dense 300-mile radius.
Yep.
And we're starting a business that is to have your children boomerang back here and live in Happy Valley, or what got you back here from San Diego. You have an expression that we're sitting on oil here in Happy Valley.
Yeah.
Do we appreciate, you talk about self-esteem or whatever, do we realize what we have when it comes to this being a destination to live, work, and play? What has been your experience about it? Are we sitting on oil? Is this Texas tea and we don't even know it?
Well, yeah, well, I think we do. I think the one neat thing with the focus on tourism since 2018, 2019 is it has opened a lot of eyes. And the realization that this can be a secondary industry in this area. Obviously, education in Penn State is the big, but I think we also learned during COVID that we've got to find other things. We just can't rely on the university, because as you know, you could roll a bowling ball down College Ave and not hit anybody during COVID when the students were in here. So tourism is something that can only go higher. I think in 24, I think we attracted for the first time over 5 million visitors, and again, domestic visitors. I believe this is going to be a record year. I wouldn't be surprised if we touch that 6 million mark by the end of the year. So young families can work in Happy Valley, hopefully locally with a local company or a local endeavor, but they can remote here. And we did see that quite a bit during COVID, is people coming in from New York, people coming in from the big city with their families and working remotely here. That's a big hook, and I think you see more and more of that happening. Selling Happy, there's nobody else doing that. Think about that. There's nobody out there selling Happy. And we laugh because we kind of giggle when we hear Happy Valley, and you know, it's interesting. There is a town called Happy Valley. It's in Oregon. It's in Oregon. You won't find our Happy Valley on a map, so it's a state of mind. But people love Happy. They love seeing people smiling. Chris, you talked about seeing all these people smiling. Just wander down College Ave on any day, and you see more smiles than you see frowns. And it's not because they're talking to somebody, they're just walking down with a smile on their face. It's that you and I don't know if you can really bottle that, but people want to go where they feel good. And this area has always been able to market that feel good.
Well, we had a guest on yesterday, Melissa Hicks, our lead connector, and she used a reference to Cheers. Remember the TV show Cheers? You know, everybody knows your name.
Right.
You know, are we talking about a similar, when you talk spirit, when you talk about decompression, are we just all want to be Norm and want to belong? And we belong to this, we are Happy Valley, we are Penn State.
Yeah, I like
you
that.
know,
I like that.
And even the name Happy Valley, that just came about really in the last couple decades.
Yeah.
It wasn't called
When
that.
I was in school, I don't remember that term being thrown around.
Not at all.
I don't remember that until I think they attribute Keith Jackson in ABC in his football broadcast as creating that awareness and using the term Happy Valley. But I mean, that's what sells. This is what you're going to get when you get the Happy Valley. You're going to feel happy. Yeah, you will decompress, and besides, we have the best ice cream in the world. So
That too, doesn't
if
hurt.
that's your last stop, you will definitely leave with a smile on your face.
You know, you said you brought up the ice cream, Dave. I got to ask you this. So I've been here at Pine Grove Hall, where we're broadcasting live right now on Connect Happy Valley A.M. I've been doing some events with Happy Valley United, the NIL collective. There's that name, Happy Valley, popping up again. The most natural branding in the world. You talk about Keith Jackson and Brent Musburger.
Yeah.
How much would you have to pay to get that kind of marketing to the size of the national audience that you get for a national Penn State football broadcast? We get it for free with that name, Happy Valley. And so every time we have one of the players up here and we're interviewing them, one of the questions that we ask is what their favorite ice cream flavor is at the creamery. So I'm going to ask you the same thing, Dave. Favorite flavor?
Alumni swirl.
Okay, all right. See, this is good. No shade to these guys on the football team.
Yeah.
We get a lot of generic answers,
Oh, yeah,
man. I'm not
well,
going to lie.
that's
We
easy.
get a lot of vanilla. You would not believe. Man, I mean, maybe that's they like the
Have they
uniform.
even been?
Like,
That would cross my mind. Have you even been if it's vanilla bean? But it is a good vanilla bean.
It is. It's very good. But okay, so alumni swirl. That's got the blueberry swirled into the vanilla ice cream with a little chocolate, right?
chocolate in
okay,
there,
very
wonderful.
good. Creative answer. I like
Yeah,
it.
I like the mint. I do like peachy paterno, but I can't enjoy that year round
Yeah,
for
same,
some reason.
Same. Yeah, I like it. It's maybe it might not even be top 5. It's definitely like top 6 or 7
Yeah.
for me, but there are a lot of really good ones. So we got about 5 minutes left on the show, Dave. We appreciate you being here. Dave Gertis, one of the gurus of marketing and selling Happy Valley. You talked about the success story of 5 million visitors to central Pennsylvania as a result, largely the effort you all put in to emphasize tourism as one of the pillars of the regional economy. Now, I always talk about how it kind of unique, or at least unusual, among R1 universities is the story of Penn State as a college that grew up in tandem with the community that formed around it. You look around the country, a lot of our peers in the Big Ten, they're located in state capitals or they're in big cities. State College is so named because of that symbiotic relationship. And so you come to a place called State College, don't be surprised when the university plays a very prominent role. We're upfront with truth in advertising. Nevertheless, there are some college towns, which are hot right now and probably getting hotter, that have found a way to achieve some balance where there has been the gown, but the town over time finds a way to have its own center of gravity and be a more equal counterweight than maybe what we've experienced here in prior decades. Dave, do you see the community of Happy Valley, and that's to include not just State College, but some of the other places that we've only touched on? We'll have to have you back on to talk about Phillipsburg
I'd
and
love to
Bellefonte
come back, yeah.
and all the places in and around State College. But can you just kind of, as we close, reflect on what tourism can do to give the community here and the local economy a little bit greater autonomy from dependence on Penn State?
Yeah, and that's the oil. That's the oil. It's still, I mean, let's face it, we've seriously been at it for about 10 years, if that. Since the occupancy tax doubled, which happened in 2019, it doubled the funding.
I cracked up, by the way. I was at that event at the Arboretum for the Mount Nittany Conservancy, and I came on the show the next day, and I told Greg, I said, I have never in my livelong life heard elected officials get up and happily brag about doubling a tax.
the
But
tax.
man, everybody
Yeah.
was so happy to talk
Yeah.
about how they
Well,
doubled
it's a
the
visitor
occupancy
tax.
tax.
It's not
Yes,
a residential
right,
tax.
right.
It's a visitor tax. But once we doubled that and it went to 5%, then there were resources to market the area. And so, yes, that is the oil I speak of. I think, Chris, the potential here is, I don't know if there's a cap on it because of the outdoor rec scene, because of the ag ventures that has been created here in this town, along with Penn State, along with the great communities, and along with the sports heritage. So that's the oil I speak of. So it's still exploratory. We're trying to find the spots to drill.
You talked about the 5 million visitors, might get up to 6 million this year. As many people will look in and say there's 7 home football games. How do the stats look on those 7 home games of bringing in visitors versus the rest of the year where we're having major events like the Arts Festival just about every weekend now?
Well, football, to really put it in its place, those 7 dates represent about 20% of what
Just
the
20%.
of what the hotels bring in annually.
I think that's probably smaller than most people would
I
assume.
think it's way smaller than most people think.
It's
Yeah.
just, well, think about it,
20%.
it's 14 days. It's only 14 days when you think about it. Now, that doesn't include graduation and any of the other major events, but those 14 days impact the hotels with probably 20% of their annual revenue.
Unless you come up here on a Thursday and make it a classic Penn State weekend, and all of y'all got plenty of PTO, you can do it.
Yeah. And it's so the objective is to shrink that. That would be the objective of tourism in this area, and I think it's very doable. And Chris, you're so involved with what's going to happen out at Rockview. I think there's an opportunity there to also enhance whatever the tourism benefits that we have in this area
No question.
is. And I think there's a way. Again, it's outdoor rec. That's the unlimited potential is outdoor rec.
And then from the visitor standpoint, I mean, from the resident standpoint, the infrastructure of Pine Grove Hall, Flower and Stone, all of these third places that support the tourist infrastructure, that is vital, that we residents benefit by.
And that is the benefit to the residents, is the embrace, and they have been. The area has embraced tourism, but we get to benefit from that infrastructure year-round.
That these restaurants stay open.
We build the playground, and those of us who are blessed enough to live here, we get to ride the rides all year round.
All year round, and it was interesting as we wrap up. When I lived in Florida, this is my first stint in Florida, was back after the Gulf War in the early 90s. And Disney they were losing crowds. So what did they do? They put together a Florida resident only program in the summer because that was their worst time. And the traffic just, they took advantage of that. The residents took advantage of that, and that's what's so valuable to people that live in a tourist community, is we get to enjoy that infrastructure, those points of interest, the attractions, the communities, the restaurants, the bars, the merchants. We get to enjoy that year round. And so our duty is to contribute to that infrastructure year round and keep them open.
And that's why Connect Happy Valley
And that's Connect
has
Happy
been
Valley.
born
Yes.
to do that.
We need, exactly, we need better connection.
Beautiful way to cinch it up, boys. Dave Gertis, appreciate you being one of our inaugural guests in the program. We're going to have you back.
My pleasure.
For sure. This is Connect Happy Valley A.M. We're with you every Monday through Friday, bringing you your little morning slice of paradise right here on the Connect Happy Valley YouTube channel, 9 to 10 a.m. from Pine Grove Hall. So don't forget to go to pinegrovehall.com and check out their jam-packed events calendar. There will be something there to grab your interest, I assure you. And from that point, you can check out the seasonal menu and book your reservations and buy your tickets if you want to come out for a live music show or presentation. And of course, go to connecthappyvalley.com and sign up for the weekly e-letter, which is headlined with a curated list of all that great stuff to help you sort through the embarrassment of riches of things to do and enjoy right here in Happy Valley. Until we talk to you tomorrow at 9, enjoy Happy Valley, everybody. Have a great Thursday.
Thank you, Dave.
Bada bing, bada boom.
My pleasure.
Good stuff.
My pleasure.
Good stuff.